What's up, football fans, and welcome to another edition of the Second String. I'm your host today, Alex Fernando. My friend Nate Milbach couldn't quite make it here. He's got work with the Husker basketball game. So I've got my good friend and tour guide coworker, Mr. Michael Ferguson, with me. Mike, how we doing today?
Doing pretty good, Alex. How you doing?
Oh, fantastic. Got a great hour of football talk ahead of you. A lot of big games from this weekend. Some upsets, a little bit of playoff shakeup. Sadly, a not-so-good Husker game to discuss.
I think that's the biggest upset from the weekend. It's just how terrible.
Yeah, that was just upsetting to watch in general. But lots of great things to discuss. Maybe a little coaching speculation for a few teams.
Few. Seen some things pop up on social media and through ESPN, so we'll see where things go from there. I'm excited for this conversation and see where we go.
All right, well, let's get right into it. Again, Second String, your best source for college football here at UNL, and we're going to bring it to you. Starting off with the big game of the week. You know, a little rivalry coming back to life. Catholics versus the Convicts. Mike, Notre Dame at Miami getting demolished. Give me your initial thoughts on this one.
That game was something else. You know, I thought it'd be close. You know, it had a fairly close point spread, if I remember correctly. And I remember I wasn't able to watch the game. I was out watching. I went to a Christmas concert with my mother, so as a birthday present, happy birthday, Mom. But I was keeping track of the score, and I pull up my ESPN app and it's 40-8.
41-8 final, yeah.
Holy cow!
Absolutely unreal. And I actually picked Notre Dame in this game, but all day Saturday, I just had a gut feeling like Miami's going to win this. Miami's going to win. I didn't think they would blow them out by 33 points, but I'm just thinking Miami's going to win this game. And just looking at the initial box score, you don't even realize how dominating Miami really was. The numbers kind of tell the story, but just watching that game even more shows what Miami is really about. And our normal co-host Nate, he called Miami as his dark horse early in the season. He might be right. I have to give him props on this one right now, but the Hurricanes are looking really good. Malik Rozier, not a fantastic game, but again, solid performance, 15-24, 137 yards and a touchdown. Miami's run game, though, 237 total yards. But in the end, no matter what, defense wins you championships, and that Hurricane defense came to play.
Coming out with that turnover chain.
Oh, my gosh, the turnover chain.
I think that's, for me personally, I think that's one of the biggest things that can affect a game. You know, we always talk about when we're standing there watching Husker games, you know, that our defense needs to get a turnover. Unfortunately, they can't do that. But Miami Hurricanes, they came out strong. They got those 4 turnovers and just took control of the game. I think that's the biggest thing for me is those turnovers.
Yeah, turnover chain, I mean, that's like the most Miami-esque piece of metal you could make, but came out 4 times, as you mentioned, against Notre Dame. And that's not a team that turns the ball over very much. Miami was just flying to the football. They almost got a turnover on the very first drive. I remember watching that. They got a tipped ball, and 2 guys dove for it, but kind of knocked it away from each other. But came out with some others. A young guy, he got the big pick 6, which is pretty crazy. And Trajan Brandy. But Miami's defense all over the field, 5 sacks and 9 tackles for loss. A lot of pressure on Brandon Wimbush, and he did not look comfortable in the pocket.
Yeah, that he definitely did not have a whole lot of time to sit there and throw. You mentioned the 5 sacks, 9 tackles for loss, and then also 3 hurries, 3 QB hurries. Which,
definitely came after.
He doesn't feel comfortable back there in that pocket. Your offense is going to struggle.
Yeah, they came after him and got a couple picks on Wimbush, and they even brought in their backup quarterback Ian Book for a little bit. And again, Notre Dame just not looking very comfortable. I think the biggest thing was their rushing game. Notre Dame averages over 320 rushing yards per game on the ground, like just from the ground game. They had 109 in this one. Where did it go?
I don't know. Maybe it was their front 5. They weren't able to cover.
They moved everybody else in their schedule. I mean, North Carolina State's got a pretty formidable defensive front. USC has pretty high caliber guys up front, and they cleared them out of the way just fine.
Well, then maybe you give that back to Miami and take nothing away from their rush defense, or to able to hold the line and control that first few yards in that box, and give it all to Miami. Then maybe it's nothing that Notre Dame did wrong. It was just simply what Miami was firing on all cylinders and doing everything right.
Miami definitely brought it to them. I think it was just kind of weird though, because Miami's rush defense is ranked 61st in the nation, and that's with this game factored in. So before that, they were probably ranked lower because they give up only 109. Usually they're giving up an average of 163, and so really stepping up in the big game, I think that made the biggest difference. Moving forward, I think Miami is definitely making a push at this playoff race. A big matchup with Clemson in the ACC title game, but knocking down Notre Dame, having Virginia Tech lose, they've solidified their spot in the ACC title game. So the Hurricanes just kind of looking to cruise until they get there. They still got a couple tough games left. I mean, nothing quite as intimidating as Notre Dame, but a tough one at home against Virginia. They're at Pitt, which is never an easy team to play. But that Clemson-Miami game for the ACC title, that's looking like a playoff in game. Like, you win that, you're in the playoff.
Yeah, I'll be interesting to see what the selection committee comes out with tonight with their picture of, for the playoffs, and see. I'll be curious to see where Miami's at, if they're on that list in that top 6 or even top 4.
Oh, I'm sure they will be. We'll be getting to the playoff rankings in just a little bit, but we'll move on to our second bin game of the week and second upset. Michael, why don't you tell us a little bit about Georgia and Auburn? Big rivalry down in the SEC.
That was a big game. I picked Georgia to come in with this one. I mean, getting that number 1 ranking. That was the first time that someone been ranked number 1 besides Bama in the last couple of years, or
basically, yeah.
At least that's what it's felt like. I mean, Bama's been at the top, so it was cool to see someone else at that number 1 spot. And then here comes Auburn Tigers, just ripping it out from them. Played really well for passing. He had. Georgia quarterback from throwing 184 yards and 1 touchdown, with Auburn coming in. Stidham,
Jarrett Stidham, yep. From the whole former Baylor quarterback.
Yes, thank you. The 218 yards, 3 TDs rushing, was the leading rusher for Georgia.
Kerryon Johnson for Auburn.
For Auburn, yeah.
Georgia couldn't get much going. They only had 46 total rush yards on the ground. Fromm was sacked quite a bit. 4 sacks for Auburn, so a lot of negative yards there. And you mentioned Jake Fromm passing. In this game, I initially picked Georgia as well. It was tough to get a read on both these teams because you didn't really know how good either of them was. Neither one of them had played that great a competition. Auburn's had a couple tough games with Clemson and LSU, but Georgia, apart from the Notre Dame game, they haven't really played anybody. So coming in here, you didn't really know exactly how good each of these teams were. And Jake Fromm, there was only 3 games this season where he's attempted more than 15 passes. So coming into this game, you haven't seen a whole lot of him throwing the ball. Georgia's been able to lean on their ground game. And Auburn comes in, just stuffs the run game. Again, 46 rushing yards for Georgia. That's unheard of.
Total. 46 total. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, you did know that Jake Fromm was sacked quite a bit. It looks like he had negative 33 yards rushing, so that's going to be tough on your run game.
Those sacks play into that quite a bit, but Auburn's defense really getting after them.
The top rusher was 27 yards, was Nick Chubb. Second was Sonny Michael with 21. So, I mean, when your top guys are only getting that many yards, it's going to be tough to get anything established.
And usually those guys are 2 backs that you can lean on. You don't care who's in the backfield. If it's those 2, you hand it off, and you know you're getting 4 or 5 yards a carry. And they're only averaging a little over 2 yards a carry in this one. Just could not get the ball moving, and I think that's a big credit to Auburn's defense. They, again, haven't played a whole lot of competition, so not a lot of people have really given them much of a look, but they're 16th in rush defense in the nation. They've held a lot of teams to pretty low points. They only give up 16.9 points a game. That's 11th in scoring defense. And I just think they're a very underrated team because they have Alabama in their conference. They have Georgia over it. And I mean, they're obviously better than Georgia now, but LSU beat them. And Mississippi State had a tough game against Alabama this week, which we'll hit on. And I just think Auburn gets overlooked a lot. And this could be a team that competes with Alabama in a couple weeks in the Iron Bowl. Maybe takes away their SEC championship.
Which, I mean, again, I'd like to see someone besides Bama on top, which would be cool to see Auburn up there, have a recreation of the game a couple years ago when had that missed field goal return for a touchdown.
Kick 6? That'd be pretty crazy.
I'll never forget where I was at when I was watching that with my teammates. So that'd be cool to see, and just, personally, when you get past the Huskers, I'm a Husker fan till the day I die.
For sure.
But getting past then, I just enjoy seeing good football games.
Oh, for sure.
So Auburn versus Bama, if that does end up happening, I'll really enjoy watching that game, and I'll be curious to see where things go if they're able to be as dominant against Bama as they were here against Georgia.
Yeah, the Iron Bowl always turns out to be a good one, and the way Auburn's playing, and with Bama having some injuries, having a tough game against Mississippi State this past week, this could be a lot closer than people might normally think. Oh, Bama's just going to roll kind of thing. Auburn's looking really good. Gus Malzahn's got the offense a little bit back on track. Jarrett Stidham, he's been kind of off and on this year, but like you mentioned, 214 yards, 3 touchdown passes, no picks. He was good on the ground. He has a rushing touchdown. But, I think the big weapon is Kerryon Johnson. 167 yards on the ground, and he had another 66 through the air and a touchdown. Feed that man. Get him the ball. He's easily the best player on your offense for Auburn. And this is going to be my bold prediction. I think Auburn could be the first 2-loss team to get into the playoff.
Oh, really? You think so?
I think they have enough offense to take down Alabama, and if they face Georgia again in the SEC title game, I always say you never want to play a team twice, and I think Georgia would have technically the edge in that. But if Auburn's doing this to them, winning by 23 the first time around, I don't see Gus Malzahn slowing down. I don't know. I think it could be done by Auburn.
That's a bold prediction there, Mr. Fernando.
Yeah, they'd have the resume though. You beat number 1 Georgia in a couple weeks. If you beat number 1 Alabama, and then you beat top 10 Georgia team or top 15 Georgia team in the SEC title game, I don't know how, and your SEC champs, I don't know how you don't go to the playoff, even with the 2 losses.
Especially with how powerful the SEC is, right now with Georgia and Auburn and Bama. If you don't allow in the SEC championship team, your selection committee's got a couple screws loose.
Yeah,
if they're not letting in that championship team.
Well, we'll get to our playoff speculation a little bit later in the show. Our final big game to talk about this week was in the Big 12. TCU and Oklahoma, probably for the first time this season. I'm guessing we'll see these 2 teams in the new Big 12 title game, but Michael, what'd you think of this game?
Really interesting. It was cool, being a former Big 12 member. It's fun to follow them and see where they're at, and seeing Oklahoma come out on top. Baker Mayfield, let me tell you, that guy is something else. 333-yard passing.
Heisman.
Give it to him. I've been a big fan of Baker Mayfield ever since he came on, but really came on this year in what he is. But that 33 yards through the air, but then also another 50 on the ground with 11 carries, averaging 4.5 per carry. His longest was 27 yards. So I really enjoy seeing a quarterback being able to be dual threat. I think that's one big thing that separates college football from the NFL is having those dual threat quarterbacks that can get out and run, and versus NFL where you mostly see guys just sitting in the pocket. So that's one thing that I love about Saturdays, and it's cool to see Baker Mayfield getting on the ground and moving outside.
Oh, for sure. Baker Mayfield has been one of my favorite players to watch over the last few years, even though he plays for Oklahoma. But that's a respected rival for us here in Nebraska, so I don't mind it too much. But you talk about his dual threat ability. Apart from that, the kid just does not lose. He will not ever quit, and he will make unbelievable plays game in and game out. And this was his 8th game out of 10 games that he's thrown for over 300 yards. That's unheard of. 8 out of 10 games.
Wow. That's an impressive. That's a next level quarterback right there.
And again, a lot of this is against Big 12 defenses, but he did that against Ohio State. He threw 386 on them, almost 600 last week at Oklahoma State. The only games he hasn't were Texas Tech, which he had 281, and he still had 20 yards on the ground and a rushing TD. And then the other game was 283, so he's still less than 20 yards away, and that was against Baylor, and he had 30 yards on the ground in that game. So you talk about his dual threat ability, and I honestly don't see a better player in the nation right now, playing at this high of a level, leading his team. And Oklahoma's got playmakers everywhere. But you talk about a player, if you take him out of this team, they can't do anything. They cannot play at this level. He raises that team at least 2 or 3 bars all by himself. And not to take too much away from TCU, But Baker Mayfield is just tough to stop. They did make some adjustments. TCU held them scoreless in the second half. Oklahoma scored all their points in the first half. So TCU's defense kind of came back a little bit. And Kenny Hill, solid quarterback for TCU. Not his best night. He was a little under 50% passing, 270 and a touchdown. Rushing yards, he had 40 and a touchdown. So, again, his dual threat ability. My big thing coming into this game was these teams are probably going to play again. And the winner of the first one, this could be tough. I mean, it's a good win. Obviously, you have the upper hand in the conference. Oklahoma's probably going to slide into the top 4 of the playoff rankings. But for TCU, do you think they have a good game plan for next time around in this Big 12 championship?
I mean, I think so. They at least got a shot at it, being able to make those halftime adjustments and coming out and keeping Oklahoma scoreless in the second half. I mean, 38 points in the first half is a lot, but being able to turn around, seeing a coaching staff be able to make those adjustments in game and turn things around, I think is fantastic for a program, and something that's vital to a successful program. I mean, you got to have fantastic players, obviously, which a lot of teams have that are successful, but you also got to have a coaching staff that knows what's going on, and being able to make those second half adjustments to be that. I think TCU, obviously, they have the coaching staff with a brain on their head, so it'll be an interesting second matchup, one that I'm excited for.
For sure. Gary Patterson, always a good coach, and always got an interesting system, a lot of kind of unheard of playmakers. I think one player they definitely need to get the ball to a little bit more. He only had 6 touches in this game. Kavonte Turpin. He's their explosive player. Kenny Hill, great quarterback, but he's not the one to break every single big play. He'll put you in the good position. Kavonte Turpin, he's the one that breaks it loose, and he's great in the punt return game, great in the kickoff game, but as a receiver, as just a jet sweep guy, very, very deadly, and Oklahoma did a good job of containing him. That's definitely something I was impressed with because he's not an easy guy to contain. But Oklahoma coming away with the victory, 38-20 in that first matchup. I think we'll see these two teams again, and that's primarily because of what happened up in Ames, Iowa. Oklahoma State at Iowa State. Quick hits on this one, 49-42. Michael, what'd you think?
It was a good game to watch. I know. Iowa State is a good team. They've been impressive. They've struggled lately in the past.
They've been unreal this season. Iowa State's not a team that you think of competing for a Big 12 title. I'm sorry, they're just not.
That's because in the past they've struggled in the last couple of seasons. So it's been cool to see them come on. Several games against them in our time back in the Big 12, and so seeing them be able to step up and not quite be the team that people just walk over all the time has been really nice to see, at least for the football universe. Unfortunately, I didn't get that Oklahoma State just kind of took over that game. But it was
a shootout, though. I mean, just with these two teams and any team in the Big 12, way too much offense is going to happen. Iowa State was down early. They kind of came back. Oklahoma State was scoring quite a bit. Iowa State tied it up, and then Oklahoma State took the lead. It's just kind of back and forth all game. Mason Rudolph, though, fantastic yet again. 376 through the air, 3 touchdowns. I think the biggest and best part of Oklahoma State, though, Justice Hill, the running back, 134 yards on the ground, 3 carries, and there was one where he absolutely just ran through the Iowa State defense. He didn't run around them. He trucked like 2 or 3 people on his way to the end zone. And if Oklahoma State has a run game this powerful, then they're going to be a tough team to stop, and they need some help. They need either TCU to lose another game or Oklahoma to lose 2 games, which TCU is the more likely one. But they came away with a big victory here, and a little bit controversial. I don't know if you saw it late in the game, that 30-second pass play. Did you see that one?
Yeah, it's actually playing up right now on ESPN, seeing it come on. So that was a real interesting play to see those 2 guys battle over it for a while and eventually see the Oklahoma State player rip it out. I'm not really sure what the rule is on that.
You're an intramural ref. You could call it if somebody throws this up in flag football. Which way you calling it?
Well, first of all, that's a really impressive flag football play for intramurals. But I personally think offense. If they're fighting for it, whoever is the offensive player to come down with it, I think you give it to the offense. Kind of like the tie goes to the runner rule in baseball. The offensive player came down with it, but I'm very thankful I was not in that official's shoes at that time because that'd be a tough call to make.
For sure. So Oklahoma State coming away with that pick and the victory, 49-42. A couple other quick hits. Michael, why don't we talk about the Tide? You said you wanted to see them tumble. I mean, everybody wants to see Alabama lose if you're not an Alabama fan. It's just the nature of college football. You want chaos if your team's not doing well. We about had some crazy chaos. We had Notre Dame and Georgia go down. Bama, close win on the road at Mississippi State. And I think the biggest thing was the fourth quarter. Jalen Hurts took over, 31-24 final, but they outscored Mississippi State 14-3 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, which, I mean, if you're ever able to take over the fourth quarter of a game, I mean, your team's probably going to take that. I mean, go back to the Penn State Ohio State game when they just took over in that fourth quarter, and I think that's what happened here with Bama and Mississippi State is that they just took over and controlled that fourth quarter, controlled the ball, controlled the time of possession, and you just were able to come out with it.
Just kind of did their Bama thing,
Yeah.
Tough game though. Mississippi State hanging tough. I mean, normally when Mississippi State has a big hype around the Alabama game, they're ranked. Alabama's always ranked in the top 2, top 1 usually. And so Mississippi State's in that middle of the pack ranking. They're like, okay, we can hang with Bama. We can do it this year. And usually they get demolished by like 30 points. They hung tight this year. Sticking around. Again, Nate and I have talked up Nick Fitzgerald countless times on this show. But this kid is a baller, and I think that he's going to be one of the tougher players to stop in the SEC. He's only a junior, comes back for his senior year, and I don't know. I've really enjoyed watching him over the last couple seasons. He's going to keep Mississippi State at least in the hunt, not necessarily for an SEC title, but at least to upset some teams and keep them solid in the SEC. I mean, still 7-3. All their losses are from conference games, so tough opponents. But I don't know, a little bit of a scare for Alabama. They have a lot of injuries. I don't know. They got a cupcake this weekend against some D2 team.
I saw that pull up, and Mercer Bears, I think is what it said.
That's what they do. All these SEC teams, they schedule a D2 or crappy D1 team in the middle of November. Just make sure they have a solid win in November. But again, they got to prep for Auburn, and it's at Auburn for the Iron Bowl this year. So it could be – this is definitely a blessing in disguise for Alabama. I mean, I would take Mercer before an Auburn week any day.
True, to kind of have that off week. I mean, what if – here's the situation for you. They overlook these guys so much that Mercer comes in and takes the win from them. What do you think that would do to the college football universe?
That would be bigger than the Appalachian State-Michigan upset in 2005.
Yeah.
Or 2007, I mean.
Yeah.
No, I don't see that happening.
No, I don't either.
Alabama's won
I'm a dreamer, and
God knows how many regular season games versus unranked opponents. So.
Yeah, I know, and you noted that I said I wanted to see Bama tie or Bama fall. So I know I'm a dreamer. What if it were to happen? But
we'll see.
Probably not. But I don't know. That's a good move by the Alabama administration down there to have.
That's what they always. They've been doing that for years. It's not a good move. That's just what the SEC does.
It's a historic good move. I mean, I'm not saying they did it this year, but historically, it's a smart thing to do just before getting into that where guys are starting to get hurt. And having this week where maybe they don't have to play their first string guys the whole time and get that break in there. I think this will be good for them.
Yeah, this is November. You got to be playing the toughest teams your schedule. This is when it counts the most. Those are the biggest games. You throw in Mercer. Come on.
I guess we'll have to agree to disagree on this one, Alex.
I suppose. Do you have any other big games you want a quick hit from this weekend?
No, I don't think so. Not right now, anyway.
What?
If I think of one, I'll let you know.
All right. Well, I want a quick hit. Stanford and Washington. Another top 10 team going down. You don't even want to talk about it?
Valid point. Let's go for it.
This is on Friday night. Stanford winning 30-22 over number 9 Washington. Stanford hot and cold this season. You just can't quite tell with this team. They've been switching quarterbacks between KJ Costello and Keller Christ. Myself, personally, I like KJ Costello a lot better from what I've watched them. No matter what, though, the big name in the game, Bryce Love, 30 carries, 166 on the ground, and 3 touchdowns.
Getting getting into the end zone 3 times on your own, just through the ground game alone is impressive. 166 yards, like you said, on just 30 carries, averaging 5.5 a carry. That's impressive to do, especially at this level when you got some strong defensive, and Washington has had an impressive defense all year, in my opinion. So
for sure, they're a very tough team to move the ball on. I mean, Stanford had 195 total rush yards. Costello had 211 passing. So getting it done on both sides, or both aspects, through the air and on the ground. I think the biggest telling thing was the pressure by Stanford. 2 sacks and then 8 tackles for loss by the Cardinals. 4 pass deflections. They were really making it tough for Jake Browning and offense to throw the ball. And, I mean, last year at this time, Browning was a Heisman caliber quarterback. Everybody's expecting Jake Browning to at least go to New York, and he's putting up crazy kind of numbers. You haven't heard much about him this season.
Yeah, he really hasn't been a name that's been in the news very much at all. They've been a quiet. I mean, I think they were a quiet number 9 team just in general to get that ranking,
for sure.
Because you just don't hear a whole lot about them, and in order to be that high quality quarterback, high caliber in the running for that Heisman, you got to be in the news just about every week. And he's just really not there. So I think they're going to struggle here coming down the stretch if they're not able to start making those big plays and make some noise in the universe here.
Definitely. I think the biggest thing this game does, though, it helps out the Big Ten on getting a team into the playoff just as much as that Notre Dame loss does. We'll take a quick break, and we'll come back, briefly discuss that brutal Husker loss to Minnesota. And you're listening to the Second String on KRNU2. We'll be right back.
Cat House in Lincoln is doing their best to change that, but they need your help. Whether you're looking to adopt or just want to help the cause, the Cat House is the place to go. There are all sorts of ways to get involved, from donating food and other supplies to volunteering. And if you have a cat, make sure to get them spayed or neutered to help cut down on the number of cats in shelters. If you want to make a difference in an animal's life, check out the Cat House or visit their website at cathouse.org.
Whether college graduation is in a few months or in a few years, gaining hands-on experience in your field of interest is a must. While a college degree is a fruitful step towards acquiring a top-tier career, today's employers are looking for college grads that already have some experience under their belt. Here at Husker HireLink, we're here to ensure that you're the person they're looking for. By simply uploading your current resume and skills, we can connect you with hundreds of employers seeking to hire college students to fill their intern, part-time, and full-time positions. Log on to HuskerHireLink.com today to get started.
The risk of an American man developing cancer in his lifetime is a little less than 1 in 2. The risk of an American woman developing cancer in her lifetime is a little more than 1 in 3, but the death rates of cancer have been declining in men and women since the early 1990s.
I relay for the support of my sister.
I relay for the support of my grandfather.
I relay for the support of my uncle.
Keep helping those in need by participating in Relay for Life. Join us for Relay for Life at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln each year to fight back against cancer. Sign up for your community event or donate at relayforlife.org.
Welcome back to the Second String. I'm here, Alex Fernando, with my buddy Michael Ferguson. Now, Michael,
Do we have to?
We do.
Dang.
This has become the rough part of the show. Nate and I struggle to get through this. I know we're going to struggle to get through this, but the Huskers, what you got?
Yeah, well, 21-54 final. Just could not seem to stop their run game no matter what. I mean,
21-54 to who?
Minnesota.
Minnesota?
Yeah, Minnesota.
The Golden Gophers of Minnesota.
The Golden Gophers, yeah.
They put up 54 points.
They did.
Is that possible?
Unfortunately, yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
But my saddest point from the game is a rushing stat of 183 yards, and guess who it came from?
I want to say that it was their running back.
No.
But it probably wasn't.
It wasn't, no.
Of course not. Why would we let their running back do that on us?
No. Who else would it be? Nobody else. Their quarterback.
Oh, my
yes.
goodness.
And even sadder, his longest run was 73 yards.
It was, almost untouched, too.
It seemed like, gosh, I don't know. Like I said earlier, Husker fan to the day I die, but man, this is just kind of getting tough to bear through. Another thing that we need, I don't know, maybe you want to talk about this later, but Tanner Lee stepping out at halftime. Do you want to cover that now or a little bit later?
We'll get that quickly now, I guess. Yeah, everybody was I was listening in on the radio driving back from work Saturday morning, and they're like, Patrick O'Brien's in. No clue why he's in. What's going on here? And they found out Tanner Lee's not feeling well. He's sick. And then later, after the game, we hear that he's in concussion protocol. And so still uncertain for this week. Coach Riley, after practice today, Tanner Lee did not practice, but said that he cleared a hurdle. So at least on the right path to starting on Saturday. Not good. But to be fair, Patrick O'Brien came in. He looked pretty solid. 12 of 18, 137 yards. And, I mean, it's not like he had any help on offense. He got hit so many times. There was one play where he's in the shotgun. It's like a third down or something. Minnesota's rushing 3 people, a nose and then 2 ends. Their nose guard bull rushes Cole Conrad back 7 yards and knocks down O'Brien with Cole Conrad.
I think I remember that. I don't know. I feel bad for him. A lot of people throughout the season have blamed, Tanner Lee asking for, wanting Patrick O'Brien to come in.
Yeah.
I believe it was the Northern Illinois game when we sat and listened to Coach Riley's post-game press conference, and so one of the reporters asked him about if he ever thought about putting Patrick O'Brien in for Tanner Lee, and Coach Riley said, Tanner's doing fine. It's when changing quarterback's not going to do anything when you have no time as a quarterback.
Oh no, with the offensive line and the shape that they are, I mean the injuries have not helped, but they're just not playing very well. And just so we don't go on like a 40-minute rant about the Huskers here, let's break it down. We're gonna skip the expected because our expected was kind of bad for this one. Nate and I always break this down into a good, and we're just gonna make it simple: a good and a bad out of this game. Was there any good for you in this, Michael? What did you see? Any players?
My good is coming out of a tight end, Tyler Hoppus.
Tyler Droppus?
No, Tyler Hoppus.
Hoppus. Okay, I've been calling him Droppus most of the season. Why do you think he's so good?
He's really come around. The Purdue game, he was big guy, big target for Tanner Lee.
Yep.
Coming in today, he had 4 catches, or on Saturday, had 4 catches for 33 yards, and 1 touchdown, which, I mean, we're going to take those as many times as we can get them. But, I think he's coming around. He's going to be a good tight end for us. He's a fairly young guy, if I'm correct.
I'm pretty sure he's a senior.
Oh, is he? That's unfortunate.
He is.
He's okay.
He originally started, I think, UNK or something. He transferred over here, so that's why.
That's why.
I don't recognize the name,
but
you're right. He's been a good target the last few weeks. I have been impressed. After that Purdue game, I gave him a lot of credit, and I think I can stop calling him Droppus now. I think he can go back to being Tyler Hoppus. He's been a big improvement over the season. Probably one of the biggest improvements I've seen. I'm going to stick with J.D. Spielman. He's the good every single week for Nebraska.
We all know you love J.D. Spielman, Alex.
Dude, I mean, he's our leading receiver. He's the most explosive player on our team. And you can just see he's the one who tries the hardest. He will give every ounce of his effort to fight for that extra yard and make a play for the Nebraska Huskers. And he's not going to go down easy. Dude's like, 5'10", $180, and he's breaking tackles, juking out everybody, and 9 receptions, 141 yards. He is the Nebraska record for a freshman for total yards, receptions, and receiving yards.
He's definitely got that heart and that fight that you like to see out of any football player, but especially on that Cornhusker football team. That like you said, he's going to fight for that extra yard. He's going to give his body to be that, and that's something you like to see. He's one of those guys that, no matter who you're a fan of, you're going to like watching him play. Like for him, he's the equivalent for me of what, I forgot his name already. The Oklahoma quarterback,
Baker Mayfield.
Baker Bayfield.
Baker Bayfield. Yeah,
I got you now. Reich Miley.
Yeah.
Now I got you.
Oh my gosh, you do.
At least I wasn't on air when I first did it.
Oh my goodness. Just to clarify, our beloved co-host here, Mr. Michael Ferguson, he once called Mike Riley Reich Miley, almost in front of him too. We were giving recruiting tours at the time.
It was mock tours.
Oh, that's right. It was practice
I was giving
tours.
a mock tour to the one and only Alex Fernando, who was.
I was a 5-star quarterback recruit. It's okay, but regardless, okay, you got me. Baker Bayfield, Reich Miley. We're good. We're even.
Okay.
Let's shift over to the bad. I don't want to talk about the bad. Let's make it quick, short, and sweet. But what was your bad from this game?
I can sum it up in one word: defense. It was almost like we didn't send out anybody for a defense.
We had a defense?
See, exactly my point. It just wasn't there. And, I'm a firm guy where I believe that the best way to win a game, the best way to get any kind of game going is for your defense to make a play. We talk about that all the time. Where,
Yep.
For something to happen, our defense needs to make a play. We need to get a turnover. And it's just not happening. I mean, 4 tackles for loss, only 1 sack, one pass deflection, which is nice to see those, but I mean, only one of them, and our defense just wasn't making the plays that they need.
To break down your defense comment a little bit more, I can summarize it in one word too: tackling.
No,
There was none of it. Antonio Reed was our lead tackler with 15, and I know that I saw him miss at least 5. So, what more can you say? Our tackling was absolutely atrocious in this game. That's what allowed Rodney Stewart to run for over 100 yards. That's what allowed Demry Croft to run over. Nebraska's defense was so bad. Minnesota's quarterback, Demry Croft, was the Power 5 quarterback of the week. Out of all Power 5 schools, he was the quarterback of the week.
And just a reference there, they were 4-5 in that game, going into that game, and 1-5 in conference, and their quarterback gets Power 5 quarterback of the week.
105 through the air, 183, and 3 touchdowns on the ground. Again, the tackling, honestly, that's one of the worst tackling games I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's terrible. And, like what you said earlier, and I know you're the exact same way, growing up a Husker fan, gonna be one till the day I die. Matt Davidson said in his broadcast of the game, talk about your all-time low as a Husker fan. It's real tough. Going to support these guys throughout the season and hope they're able to make something of it. But, goodness, it's really tough to sit there and watch these games, whether it be in the stadium even or watching on TV, listening to the radio. It's real tough.
Is this the all-time low, though?
We could go lower. We've got Penn State.
I was just going to say, we're 4-6. We got blown out by Minnesota. We have Penn State and Iowa up next.
Yeah.
On the road at Penn State, by the way.
Which really concerns me, too, because Penn State's out for blood. They've, gotten embarrassed. I mean, they just completely lost their game against Ohio State. They had it in the bag and then just stopped making plays as a team and lost that one. And then lost another game in which, they're going to be out for blood trying to, get redemption there. And
I don't even care about teams out for blood. They're just head and shoulders above us. Like, they're going to demolish us. They have a Heisman caliber player. Iowa, they can either be really good or really Iowa. And, they're going to run the ball on us. That's just how it's going to work. And just jumping back to Nebraska, Minnesota a little bit, my bad from the game, apart from the tackling was absolutely atrocious. So was the blocking. I mean, our offensive line has not been good all season. We've had a lot of injuries, so you can give them a little bit of slack, but not this much. This, again, probably the worst tackling game and the worst blocking game I've seen. I mentioned the Cole Conrad getting shoved 7 yards back, and, I mean, there was multiple times a 3-man rush got our quarterback down. Minnesota had 6 sacks, 10 tackles for loss.
That's
6 sacks and 10 tackles for loss from Minnesota.
That's tough to swallow as a Husker fan, and people are going to say, that there's some people that are saying that you got to give them time and give them a chance to come back. But I mean, at what point do you stop giving them a chance? What point do you just finally say enough is enough as a Husker fan and say, we deserve better as a loyal fan base that we are, where we still fill Memorial Stadium and getting at least 89,000 in that building every Saturday, continuing the sellout streak, which honestly we might be in danger of losing.
We won't be losing that, but I just want to mention again, our blocking in this game. Minnesota's defense, they rank 58th in the nation with sacks, and that's after our game. So they had 15 sacks before they played us, and they have 21 now, and they rank 55th in tackles for loss. So they added 10. They were at 51 tackles for loss. So they jumped up 20 spots, more than 20 spots in the national rankings of tackles for loss, and about the same, well, not quite as much with sacks, just from our blocking, our lack of blocking. It's just unreal. I think that's, again, we got a long way to go as a Husker football program. There could be some coaching changes.
Possible. It'd be interesting to see what happens. A couple things coming out of ESPN. I think it was today, actually.
Yeah, what have you been hearing, Michael?
Well, let me find it. It'll take me. Where is it at? There it is. Adam Rittenberg with ESPN. Nebraska has informed UCF that they want Scott Frost, which is pretty interesting. He said on his show that Nebraska has informed the people at UCF that Nebraska wants Mr. Frost to come, which is exciting as a Husker fan. Thinking back to the times when Scott was here as a player. And we also, coming out today, Florida has hired a coach. You were telling me about that a little bit earlier.
Yes, Florida has officially offered and officially agreed to a 6-year, $4.5 million per year deal with Chip Kelly. So, looking to get that offense back on track. It looks like their official press conference, I think, is set for Thursday. So, unofficially, officially, looks like Chip Kelly's going down to the Gators, which sounds good for Husker fans because, as you mentioned, Nebraska's officially at least reached out to Scott Frost, possibly hinting at some stuff. And I think the biggest telling comment made yesterday by athletic director Bill Moose was that, quote, Coach Riley deserves to finish the season, end quote. So, again, that to me that kind of hints, okay, Riley's probably going to be on his way out. But I've also heard some interesting rumors, and this might puzzle you a little bit. We keep Riley around Lincoln.
To do what?
To recruit.
Okay.
So, if this is all hypothetical, right now Riley is still our head coach. Scott Frost is still at UCF. None of this is in place yet. But from some rumors I'm hearing, some possible ideas being thrown around, Scott Frost comes in to coach. We move Riley to a front office position so he can still work out the rest of his contract. And then we don't have to pay off 3 coaches at once. We can just keep Riley with his contract, let him run it through, bring in Scott Frost, start turning the program in a new direction. And I think that could be really interesting because we both work under Coach Riley and his staff on game day, helping with their recruiting efforts. So we get to see a little bit behind the scenes of what he and his staff do. And we obviously can't give away a whole lot with confidentiality and NCAA guidelines. But just speaking from experience, we have never been in front of this high caliber of a recruiting class, I don't think ever in Nebraska, or in a very long time at the least. So, I don't know, my thoughts on keeping Coach Riley around to help out with some recruiting efforts, that could be pretty helpful.
Yeah, I think that'd be a great thing for our program because obviously, Mike Riley, I think, is fantastic about his recruiting mind and how he's able to get guys to come here. I mean, look at our recruiting class that we've had come in and guys that, they're getting in. And we have, obviously, J.D. Spielman being a recruit of Mike Riley's.
J.D. Spielman, Tyjon Lindsey.
Yeah. All these guys, he's obviously good. He's getting talent in. I just don't know where he's at as far as his coaching ability. So if we were able to keep him on staff and get him in at least to fill out his contract so we wouldn't be paying off so many people because we're still paying off Coach Bellini, correct?
Yes.
And then we'd have to pay off Coach Riley, and then also we'd have to pay out the rest of Coach Frost's contract out of UCF. That's a lot of money going out of the university's pockets, which would probably drive up
in a number of
some
different directions too.
Yeah, and that definitely make you have the popcorn and Pepsi that you get at the game a little bit more expensive.
For sure. But again, nothing's in place yet. As far as we know, Coach Riley still could be the coach next year. But to me, keeping him around as a front office guy, one, he's great here. People in Lincoln love him. Yeah, they don't love the way he's coaching the program. Yeah, they don't love his product on the field. And his quote from practice yesterday kind of concerned me. I don't know if you saw, but
our only problem has been games or something like that.
Yeah, we're doing everything right but the games. I'm like,
That's the important part, Coach.
Mike, that's what we need. We need the games. So, again, you don't want to hate the guy. You want him to succeed here. No, I don't think any Husker fan would ever wish any ill will upon Mike Riley or his staff or anything like that. I just think we need to move in another direction, personally. But keeping Mike Riley around, that direction doesn't necessarily mean Coach Riley has to leave. Coach Riley could be around and still point us in that direction. It just might not. We might have to make a couple turns.
Yeah, and I think I think Mike Riley is a man of a lot of character and great integrity, and I think he would be a great person to keep around because these kids are still in college. They have, have stuff to learn about being a man, and I think Coach Riley has that ability because like I said, his character is fantastic, and I think he has a lot to teach these guys.
Having the ability to work closely with him and his staff, and just seeing the impact that he has on these players, you can tell that they want to play and they want to fight for him. It's a rough year, a lot of new systems. This is the first full season with his offense. He's implementing a lot of new stuff. First full season with a new style quarterback. First season with a new defensive coordinator. This team was not going to be going to the Big Ten championship right out of the gate. They're not going to be competing on the playoff level yet, regardless of who was coach. It's a lot of new things that people need to get figured out. But again, I'm not totally keen on everybody saying we need to get Riley out of town or anything like that. I know there's some Husker fans who think that, but when you take a step back, take a breath, and you actually look at the kind of things he's done to this program and the way that these kids and these football players, these are our peers, and we're both good friends with some of the guys. They have nothing bad to say about Coach Riley. They love him. They love all their position coaches and their staff. So maybe a couple shakeups. You don't know if Scott Frost were to come to town, if there's some changes or anything like that, or if people leave, don't leave. But if Mike Riley was somebody that we could keep and get Scott Frost, I don't see a better scenario for Nebraska.
I think that's going to be a high caliber staff if you could somehow work that out. And the football gods finally smiled on us. I think they've been frowning at us a couple of years.
Well, we'll see what decisions Bill Moose can make and what he decides to do. He said he's going to probably finish his evaluation of the football team before the end of the season, so before we reach that Iowa game. So within the next week and a half, he'll kind of have his idea down. But I think he's, I'm excited to see what happens moving forward. It could be an interesting offseason for Nebraska. Definitely not one we were necessarily hoping for at the beginning of the season, but, you got to start somewhere. Sometimes you get in a rut, you got to dig yourself out, and we might be turned around in a few years. You never know what could happen.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to happen, in just 1 year turnaround. If we get Scott Frost, it's not like we're going to the tournament next year or anything like that.
No way.
I think if we as Husker fans have faith in...
Did you just say NCAA tournament?
Well, the bracket, the playoff.
It's called a playoff,
yes,
Michael.
Thank you.
We're talking about playoffs.
Well, it's still a tournament setup, though.
We're talking about playoffs here,
okay.
Michael.
Yes. Okay. Now you got one on me again. But no, to have... I lost my train of thought. We're moving on now.
All right, well, moving on. How about we talk about the playoffs? The rankings actually don't come out tonight until 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, so our show's going to be done.
Finish up.
I know. I thought it'd be out for us, but why don't we have a little bit of fun? Let's do our own playoff speculation. Right now, after this weekend's games, who would your top 4 be? Top 6. How about your top 6?
My
Then
top
we have
6?
our 2 outsides.
Okay, how about you go first, and I'll think about it. Yeah.
You're just gonna copy me or something?
No, it definitely won't happen. But I'm definitely gonna think about it a little bit more. You're kind of putting me on the spot here.
All right. Well, for me, I think Bama would move up to number 1. They're sitting at number 2. They fought a tough team against Mississippi State. That's still a top 15 football team that they beat on the road. Not an easy game to win. So I think Bama slides up to number 1, as they probably should be. Now, the number 2 spot is where it gets kind of tricky. Do you go with Miami, who just demolished a number 3 team? They're number 7. That's a big jump, 5 spots. I don't know if I could quite put them that high, so I think I'm going to move Oklahoma up to number 2. The reason I put Oklahoma there is, again, they beat number 6 TCU. They have the resume with beating Ohio State on the road. They high-powered offense, Heisman caliber quarterback. They played really well against Oklahoma State last week, another top 15 program. Their only losses to Iowa State, who has proven that they're a tough team to beat, even though it is Iowa State, and you don't necessarily associate that name with a tough team. But I think Oklahoma and Baker Mayfield will be sitting in at number 2. Number 3, I would move Clemson up to number 3. They've played a solid schedule. They have won in every game. They've played solid teams. Florida State this past weekend kind of struggled, but they're a complete team. You know what you're going to get with Clemson. A tough loss against Syracuse earlier, but you have an injured quarterback. Things and that's early in the season. Losses count much more in November than they do early in the season. So I think Clemson slide up. Miami sits at number 4 for sure. Miami needs to be in the top 4. They're going to be either 3 or 4. I can move Clemson or Miami around personally, but I think Miami's game against Notre Dame proves that they need to be in the top 4. The outside looking in, I have Wisconsin at 5 and Auburn at 6. Those 2 teams are sitting right outside. And again, I think Wisconsin, they have a good shot to get to the college football playoff. They have to deal with Ohio State in the Big Ten title game. They still have Michigan this weekend, a much improved Michigan team. So still a lot to prove for the Badgers. But if they keep winning, they should be good. Auburn, I said it earlier in the show, I think they could be the first 2-loss team in the college football playoff. All depends on the Iron Bowl, but I think they put themselves in a very good position, knocking down Georgia. So that would be my top 6. Bama, Oklahoma, Clemson, Miami. Again, those 2 could be flipped either way. I could go either way on that. And then Wisconsin at 5, Auburn at 6. What you got?
Okay, you're worried about me copying you, and I'm really not. So, this is what I'm not. So my number 1, I got Miami at number 1. Coming in just
from 7 to 1.
From 7 to 1, yeah. That was such an impressive game for me. Looking back over the stats and being able to just kind of see how
watching it was insane. I
Miami wish I could have.
Miami just brought it to them right out of the gate.
So just being, that was such a decisive win, and one of those wins that you look for in that number 1 team.
Okay.
And honestly, with Bama playing whoever the heck they're playing this week, Mercer or whoever it is in D2, and Miami, if they're able to pull out another substantial win or decisive win, they're going to take that number 1 spot. So I give Miami the number 1. 2 is obviously Bama right behind them. Still playing great. I don't know. I'd like to see them down. Maybe it's just wishful thinking on my part, but Bama 2. Number 3, that's where it gets a little bit tricky for me. I'm going to stick with Oklahoma. Oklahoma's going to take the 3rd spot.
Okay.
And remain there. Gosh, and stay at that number 3 spot and keep it.
They'd be moving up because Notre Dame was there before.
That's a valid point. I was looking at their current ranking right now.
Oh gosh, that's the AP.
Yeah, whatever. Here's my number 4 pick. That's going to shock you. Wisconsin.
Oh my goodness.
Wisconsin at 4.
You and Nate need to go have a little Wisconsin powwow and hang out together.
They're 10-0. Can you deny that they are an impressive team, and have just? Granted, it was us, but they controlled the ball the entire game, and I thought that was probably one of the most impressive showings I've seen of controlling the line of scrimmage and the ball in that 4th quarter where we had it for 3 plays. When we played
5 plays total,
5 plays? Yeah. Okay, see? When they were, so I think they jumped to that 4th spot. 5 outside looking in, 5 Clemson, 6 Auburn. I think if Auburn's able to keep winning and take the SEC championship and beat Alabama.
And then Georgia again.
Yeah. I think they might move into that 4th spot, but right now they're outside looking in at 6.
Well, then you have to have Clemson or Miami fall out. So I think Auburn could easily jump into there.
Yeah. So that 5-6 a little bit shaky. I kind of blend those together because Clemson's obviously a great team, remaining, being the defending national champs, and I think they deserve to be at least in the discussion for that playoff.
Yeah, Nate, my normal co-host, he's been known to call Clemson the Clemson Titles. Not the titles. So Yeah, just got to throw that out there. I know he always appreciates that, but we got a few minutes left. I want to talk about a little bit of playoff speculation. Who you think might end up at the finish line? Who's going to be that top four that make it in?
Oh no!
With some games left, who's going to lose? Who's going to win? Who you think getting in there?
I think Bama's in for sure in that top 4.
Okay.
As long as you're not asking me to rank them, I'm not going to because I don't think I'm that good.
Oh yeah, no, that's tough to do. I mean, you think Bama's going to take it on the road at Auburn in the Iron Bowl?
Maybe. I think that game's a toss-up, but I think they're in.
That's fair. It's a fair assessment.
In for sure. Maybe. I think it'd take probably a pretty big miracle from someone else. They're one of 3 undefeated teams that are still in the top 10. I mean, you still got UCF, which they're down at 14 at 9-0, but they're not going to jump in. So I think Alabama could be a 1-loss team that gets in,
or they'd be undefeated
if they lose to Auburn
Oh,
in the Iron Bowl.
They're not getting in if they lose in the Iron Bowl.
You don't think so?
No, I'm telling you what's going to happen.
Okay, all right, you give it to me. Tell me how it is, Alex.
The winner of the Iron Bowl gets in, whether that's Auburn or Alabama. The winner of Miami-Clemson gets in. Oklahoma stays in because they'll beat TCU again in the Big 12 championship, and then that leaves who's gonna make it out between Wisconsin, and then does that loser of the Iron Bowl get in if it's a close game, that kind of thing. I think Wisconsin probably gets the nod there. Miami, Clemson, they'll take care of each other. I said it earlier. I said it last week. The Big Ten's not getting a team in the playoff, and that got probably demolished this weekend because of some other losses. It's still possible, in my opinion, if Wisconsin loses one. To me, the thing is, what if Wisconsin goes undefeated, loses to Ohio State in the Big Ten championship? Does Ohio State jump back in? Are they going to be boosted enough to jump over all those other teams and stay in that playoff?
I don't think so. Also, I don't think Wisconsin loses to Ohio State in that Big Ten title game. I think Wisconsin runs away with the Big Ten conference and gets that bid in.
Okay. Well, I definitely think I think I could pick Auburn. I think Auburn's going to win the Iron Bowl, and I think I'm going to take them as the first ever 2-loss team to make it into the playoff. That's my bold statement this week.
That's your bold statement this week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some of them have worked out. Some of them have not. Most of them not, because I said Washington State was my dark horse earlier this year. That didn't work out. I said Big Ten's not getting in the playoff, which is still a possibility. You never know. We still got a lot of football left. We got rivalry week coming up in a week and a half. Oh my gosh, best time of year.
What's the Student Alumni Association giving out that you said you weren't going to get me?
Oh, I'm giving out Beat Iowa hats.
Beat Iowa hats? Okay, yeah. So you heard it here, students. Go get your Beat Iowa hats. Oh, wait, no, that's just for the Student Alumni Association.
Got to be part of the SAA. It'd be good. It's a good organization to join. I don't know, any closing thoughts, you think, with college football? Any big happenings this week or anything football related? Who's going to the Super Bowl, Michael? What do you think?
Gosh. Patriots win it all. I don't know.
Oh
I don't want to say that. I get so frustrated with the NFL because it gets so political.
It does.
It's not even football anymore. It's just too political. So I'm gonna abstain from this discussion.
See, that's why we stick to college.
Yeah. See, because I mean, these kids, they're still just kids. They're still playing. However, though, I will say the Eagles have been impressive. What I have paid attention to. Here's an interesting thing for you is
what we got
is Commissioner Goodell gonna remain commissioner?
I don't worry about that.
Okay. Again,
he can do whatever. His spot is.
I mentioned.
His spot is pointless anyway. But no,
I heard that he was asking for some pretty ridiculous stuff.
I'm sure he was. Great week of college football. We got some big games ahead of us this weekend. I'm excited. We could see a little more chaos, a little more playoff shakeups. I mean, you know what? Any given Saturday, anything can happen, right?
Yeah.
That's the beauty of college football.
Any given day, the best team in the nation can be beat. So.
Very true. Well, thank you all for tuning in on the Second String. Our time is up, and we'll get rolling along here. But appreciate you listening in here on KRNU2. For Michael Ferguson, I'm Alex Fernando. Have a good one, folks.
From Anderson Hall on the campus of the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, this is KRNU2 Lincoln.